Welcome back to the Jazari Qual Show. Jazari here, joined by Tommy for another stream tonight on headlines making waves across the country today. So we are going to start off with some breaking news in a significant development in Omaha's political landscape. State Senator Mike McDonnell, has officially announced his candidacy for mayor. This sets the stage for a compelling race against the incumbent mayor Gene Stothert, who is seeking a fourth term. So let's talk about this a little bit. Some background on Mike McDonnell. He served as the chief of the Omaha Fire Department and has been a member of the Nebraska legislature representing the 5th District. He served 2 terms. But earlier this year, McDonnell made headlines after switching his party affiliation from Democrat to Republican and giving the Republicans the necessary vote needed to pass abortion restrictions and trans healthcare restrictions in Nebraska. Which was a move that surprised a lot of people. But so this mayoral race, McDonnell's entry into it is going to be a huge challenge for Stothert, I think, just because, he's pretty good with the unions and things up there. But both candidates now identify as Republican, and Stothert is pretty popular in Omaha. I mean, she's been reelected several times. But yeah, what is your take on this announcement? Tommy, you've seen it coming for a while, actually.
I mean, for a long time, we really did think that he was going to run for Omaha mayor, and that was back when he was still a Democrat. Like, people at the party were pretty certain that's what he wanted to do, even though he was like, "Hey, I'm focused on my current role." It's when he became a Republican, that's when everything kind of got thrown for a loop, because it's like, there's no way this guy thinks he can run against Stothert as a Republican, right? So, people in the party, they were just like, speculating that, maybe he's going to get like a position within the Pillen administration or something like that, because it would just be unthinkable to try to run as a Republican against a popular Republican incumbent. Right. But apparently, I just don't understand what his thinking is here, because he's not going to get a lot of Democrats voting for him, that's for sure. And as I understand it, like Stothert is going to be, I mean, she's pretty popular from what I understand. But I mean, if it's him and Stothert in the general election, which I don't think both of them can make it, to be honest. But if it's I know liberals who will go out and knock doors for Stothert over this guy.
Seriously?
Oh yeah. Stothert, I mean, she has an interesting coalition. I mean, it's probably a dominated. The Omaha is probably dominated by Democratic voters, but she enjoys popularity amongst everyone because she keeps it to what her purview is. It's not very sexy stuff, but it's like responsible use of public dollars, that sort of fixing potholes or whatever, managing the future of the city. But also, she'll show up to pride parades. She'll show up to all kinds of community fairs or events and stuff, especially like ethnic events. And
it's like
people just really like her, and that's why the Democrats can never get somebody to beat her.
Yeah,
I mean, I like her.
During I think a Juneteenth parade, when she was walking, somebody yelled, "Fix them streets!" at her from the side.
Yeah,
I don't know if it seems like we always have a road or a condition problem everywhere here in Nebraska. But so some key issues that we're expecting his campaign to focus on, since he has a background with the Omaha Fire Department, he's expected to focus on public safety, including fire services and law enforcement, obviously, as central parts of his campaign. I think it's safe to kind of assume that. He's going to talk about economic development, addressing economic growth, job creation, all that kind of, economic stuff that everyone talks about. But he also might focus on improving city infrastructure, public transportation, and essential services to enhance the quality of life for Omaha residents. So, I mean, I feel like mayoral races, especially in Lincoln and Omaha, are pretty just economic business, local business, focused. They don't really talk about, there's not a whole bunch of hot button issues, I guess, that could be talked about during that, because you just serve as the chief executive of the city. You're just making sure that there's economic growth, everyone is safe, city services are available for everyone who need them, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be a lot of room for social issues, and I don't think Stothert will go there anyway. And he brings controversy to the table for being that decisive vote on reproductive rights and trans rights and stuff. But I mean, I don't see Stothert hitting him with that. Perhaps his Democratic opponents in the primary will. But for the most part, people want to know their tax dollars are being used wisely. We're going to fix the potholes, that sort of thing. The thing they have openly sparred over, I read just a little bit about today, is they've sparred over the Omaha streetcar program that's going to cost at least $300 million. He's criticized it as, an irresponsible use of city funds. They're also using tax increment finance, which seems like everybody hates tax increment finance and stuff. And she's hit back by saying, like, well, you don't even attend the hearings on the streetcar program, and if you're such a problem, why don't you show up to listen? But
Right.
yeah, I mean, they're probably going to spar over tax dollars, and I don't know. I'm sure now that McDonnell is a Republican, he'll try to make the case that violent crime is up, even though it's not. So yeah, it's going to be crime and safety and tax dollars, relatively boring stuff.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I mean, a lot of critics are going to be talking about, his changing his political affiliations and things like that. So I think that's going to be a topic for hot debate. And it's also kind of like, if they make this about more like partisanship stuff, people would say, like, why vote for the new Republican when you could vote for the long time, staunch conservative? So yeah. Mike McDonnell.
Yeah, that's one of the things some of the progressives within the Democratic Party are trying to say to all the people who've been doing the postmortem, saying that, well, the reason why they didn't vote for us because, we were woke. So now we need to be harsher on the border. We need to stop fighting for civil rights and stuff like that. And the retort is like, why would anybody want to vote for Republican light when they can vote for Republican? If they're wanting to vote Republican, why would you vote for diet Republican?
Why go for great value when you can get name brand?
Yeah, and sugar tastes good, so none of that artificial sweeteners, just full on.
Yeah.
So
Jasmine Harris, a Democrat who ran for this same seat last election cycle for this race, put out a statement today saying, quote, "The addition of Republican Mike McDonnell to the Omaha mayoral race underscores that the table is being set with a range of perspectives and ideas. I welcome this opportunity to engage in a robust and thoughtful conversation about what's best for our city and how we can collectively shape Omaha's future. My campaign remains focused on making Omaha a place for everyone, a city where every resident, regardless of their background or neighborhood, feels valued and empowered. I look forward to connecting with the community, exchanging ideas, and building a vision that prioritizes safety, opportunity, and progress for all." So, pretty standard statement about somebody else
pretty
hopping
standard,
in. Yeah, she was on my show the last time she ran.
So
I had her on the last time she ran.
She sounds like this. Pretty much. This pretty much sounds like her.
Yeah, I mean, she's a pretty.
Okay. I mean, it's measured, yeah, and I guess I would have expected a little bit of attacking, but maybe she knows that, like, she's not going to be having to compete with his base or anybody who's going to be potentially making them their number one. But yeah,
do you
it's a
think
pretty good statement, I think. Isn't there 3 right now? I think there's 3 of them. There's Ewers or something like that.
I didn't see if they had a statement out when I was preparing for this show. So,
oh no, it's so John Ewing, Jasmine Harris, Mike McDonnell, and Gene Stothert. So yeah, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. I don't know much about John Ewing.
Yeah, I think Harris has a little bit more name recognition, but Yeah. All right. So yeah, we're gonna follow this closely as the developments happen. I mean, we've pulled the trigger on city races, so we're expecting
Yeah,
more announcements to come out of Omaha and Lincoln as well for city council races that are next year. So
yeah,
it's gonna be a fun cycle.
yeah. We'll see. I mean, we got our own race here in Lincoln, so
Ooh, you just knocked your
one
camera
second.
to the side.
Yeah, I'm messing with the new setup. My bad.
No, you're good.
But
All
anyways,
right.
yeah.
Next story. So another major development out of Illinois, Jussie Smollett's conviction was overturned by the Illinois Supreme Court, his 2021 conviction, for staging a hate crime and lying to police. So this sparks debates on legal rights, hate crime, integrity, and media influence, which is something we should talk about. But a little bit of background information about this case. Jussie Smollett was a really popular actor at the time. Like he was on the show Empire, which I love that show. I love that show so much. It's probably one of my top five shows. Taraji P Henson, love her. Uh, Everybody else, they were great. But she's probably the most like famous person off of that show. But so Smollett claimed he was attacked in a racially and homophobically motivated hate crime involving two masked men shouting slurs and referencing quote MAGA country. Authorities found evidence suggesting Smollett staged the attack with the help of his two brothers, who testified that they were paid to assist. So the timeline was February 2019. He was charged with filing a false police report. March of that same year, the charges were dropped after Smollett agreed to forfeit his bond and perform community service. February 2020, we indicted on 6 counts after a special prosecutor reviewed the case, and then December 2021, convicted on 5 counts and sentenced to 150 days in jail, probation, and restitution. And yeah, so the Supreme Court's decision, the key argument was that Smollett's due process rights were violated by being prosecuted twice for the same offense, and then the court ruled that the re-prosecution after the initial charges were dropped constituted double jeopardy. His legal team celebrated the decision as justice served, maintains that his innocence and criticizes prosecutorial overreach, but the special prosecutor voiced disappointment in the ruling, arguing it was based on procedural grounds rather than the strength of the evidence. But this just raises a question about integrity of hate crime reports, responsibility of public figures, roles of the media in shaping things, because this was a high profile case. I mean, everybody was talking about this. He got booted off of Empire, and then they had to give it a terrible ending. I'm still disappointed in that. But anyways, I digress. What's your take on this?
Um, yeah, it's so I was reading about this case. The first thing is like I heard about this case on the radio before anybody knew it was like a staged thing. And I remember the one little line that made me go, huh? But I didn't really think much about it after that was, somebody was in Chicago saying this is MAGA country. And I was just like, MAGA country? Chicago? And then that's all I had thought of it. But as it came to light, it was like, wow, this guy was a super successful person. I mean, I think that he had an album out at the same time. Thing is, though, is like at the same time, This Is America by Childish Gambino came out, right? And I'm wondering. I mean, that was massive success for Childish Gambino, and I'm wondering if like Juicy Smollett was like, man, I need more. I need more attention. I need more notoriety because like their albums were out at the same time, and I'm just wondering if maybe he was just like driven to this like I need more, So I kind of
You
felt
get a
bad because
taste
it
of
just
it,
seemed
and
like
yeah,
yeah, I mean he just like he's got this fully successful career, but he's not taking off like some people like in comparison at the time, and I just felt like maybe he was trying to get some of that extra clout or something like that. But it's just like wow, man. I mean, I just ended up feeling bad for the guy in the end, And then yeah, like I saw the headlines today, and the headlines weren't so good that they didn't really. Some of them didn't really even go into the fact that he was basically convicted on double jeopardy. Like he got prosecuted once, plead out, and then got prosecuted again via a special prosecutor. That's kind of funny though. It's like they did the special prosecutor because people were so mad at them for giving him such an easy deal. So it's
yeah,
just like, well, now we have a trial by public at this point. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the right thing to do by the Supreme Court if you agree if you make a plea deal, you shouldn't be prosecuted for the same thing again.
Did you ever watch Empire?
No, I didn't. It's a story about record companies. Yes.
So pretty much when the image comes back, it's about this family who own
Yeah.
and they own Empire Entertainment, which is like this
Yeah.
global like
Mm.
powerful like media company or record company that diversified into a whole bunch of other industries, right? Like fashion, things like that. Um, Look at them. They look like a
Terrence
family. They
Howard.
acted like a family. Everybody casted for the role in the Lions family was so good, but he pretty much struggles with his sexuality throughout the beginning of it, and then like,
Mm-hmm.
does he want to? It literally follows him becoming a superstar and like a fall from grace and having to go to rehab. Pretty much like outlines like what happens in the music industry,
Mm.
right? Like down to like
Yeah.
some crazy stuff like gang banging, violence, and stuff. But
Mm.
they had a lot of people on this show. Omarion was on this show as a special guest. Uh, Alicia Keys was on for an episode. Mariah
Mm-hmm.
Carey was on for an episode. Like they had a lot of like big name people come on and make songs with. That was the other thing too, like the music. All the music was
Yeah.
original. They sung, they performed throughout it. It was great. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Cookie was my favorite
And this
character,
was
George Hanson, but yeah.
this was on a broadcast. It was on Fox. It was on like a main channel, was it?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah. So I
And
mean, like Fox is never really known to be able to put out like very popular shows like that. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I heard about it. It was such a popular thing that people. I mean, people in my social media would talk about Empire a lot. So, but I never really got down to it. I don't
I'd
know.
sing
I also
"You're
didn't watch
so
every.
beautiful." Did it? Did it?
Oh
I still
man,
have
maybe it
those
was
songs
pretty
on
nice.
my I still have those
There's
songs on
a
my
there's this other show that like I haven't watched that kind of feels like the same. It's called Secession on HBO, and all my friends are like, "You have to watch it. You have to watch it. So good and stuff." And I'm just like, I think it's kind of the
Oh
same thing
yeah.
here, just not into it. I don't know, but
Well, Secession is more about like straight business like billionaires. This
okay,
focused more around music. Like all this whole
oh,
show
okay,
centered around music. Secession is not around music. It's
like the
about like straight
business and
business
business aspect
and
of it,
like
and this is more
yeah,
okay.
siblings fighting for like different
Oh,
like stuff. Yeah.
okay.
That's a great show too.
I have so many shows that I can't take on any more commitments right now. Not at this time. But no, I think the thing that I always walked away from was like, man, that guy was just needing more, 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 more. And isn't that the human condition, right?
Yeah.
But I just that yeah, no, it really did my head in thinking like this guy was world famous. He had a great career and stuff, but I think that he was just looking at other people and going, I'm not there yet. You know, I need to have more. So I mean, in the end, it was just really sad. I mean, I remember listening to the judge's sentence, and the judge was just like, "There's nothing I can do that you haven't already done to yourself, but you're going to be in jail for 100 days." So it's like, oh, okay. I thought he was about to get let off, but
But I think that like I don't know. I feel like celebrity and rich people jail is different.
yeah. Well, you had to go to Cook County Jail for 100 days. So
I don't know anything about that. Like
that's the Chicago jail, Cook County. But man, I'm wondering if he's not going to try to like, you know, rehab his brand and try to go away saying this was like, oh, I was declared innocent. It's like, you were thrown out on a technicality, but I mean, I see so many people coming back from being canceled that it's just like cancel culture is not real. Like even Kevin Spacey's making a comeback. It's like, what?
is he
What?
really?
Yeah, yeah. And he did something kind of clever. Like he came back in a movie that was about, it had something to do with his character was somebody who got prosecuted for sexual harassment or something like that. So it's like, well, if you go Google it, you're going to see his movie and not necessarily his awful behavior. So it's just like you see so many people coming back from supposedly being canceled. It's like, you know, maybe he'll come back. I don't know. I really sincerely hope he like finds the help he needs and stuff because that just looked like it was torture, you know, to accomplish so much, but it still not be enough. You
And
know?
that show could have went on. That's the thing
Yeah.
about it. Like that show could have gone on. Like there were so many different storylines and different characters that were weaved in and out. but
Yeah.
Empire could have went on.
That's how did it end? You said you were upset with the ending.
Yeah, it was just like the way they had to. It ended abruptly. Honestly,
Yeah,
it was one of those things where it just kind of like ended abruptly.
but
Awful.
not Soprano abruptly good.
No, it was kind of just like, wait, I feel like there needs to be another episode. It just ended
Mm-hmm.
like it was just a regular episode and it was done.
It felt like
But
a cliffhanger.
yeah,
Yeah,
in some
I've had a
ways,
few shows
but
like
and
that.
they also like changed it too. Like I think they had to like write him out of the script.
Mm,
So it was just a mess. It was just a mess,
yeah.
and I'm still upset about how that ended. Damn. Wow.
Yeah. No, well, I remember, conservative influencers online, content creators and stuff were already pretty prominent. Um, even in like, what was this, 2019, early 2019, late 2018. And like, that's the first thing they said was like, this guy doesn't look like he got roughed up and he's just trying to blame Trump. And then, yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of this after the fact, but it was just like, people broke it down and they're like, man, you get jumped, you look a certain way, and he did not look like he got messed up. And like, didn't he like supposedly after he got hit, he just went to like a Subway or something like that? He walked into like a Subway. Was that?
I don't remember the specific details. I kind of just got
Um,
like the ones of
people, they were like that does not look like somebody who got jumped. Like
right
it wouldn't
in
be safe.
Chicago. Like, ooh,
Yeah, and I never thought anything of it until way after the fact. But the only thing that made me go, huh, was like somebody screaming MAGA country in Chicago. And Dave Chappelle does a really funny joke about this where he's like kind of doing a little sketch comedy on it. And he says, Jesse Smollett says, this guy screamed MAGA country. And the cop was like, MAGA country? He said, hold on. He goes over to his partner. He says, Frank, find out where Kanye West was last night. Yeah, because he was a huge MAGA guy. All right, he did it better. All right, I'm gonna try to steal jokes.
All right. Next story. Ooh, lost my notes for a second.
There he is.
Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz has officially withdrawn his name from consideration to be Donald Trump's attorney general. So this is a major shakeup within President-elect Donald Trump's transition team. So just last week, he was nominated by Trump to lead the Department of Justice, resigns 2 days before the House Ethics Committee was supposed to release this report on him. Gaetz, a staunch Trump ally, was picked, as Tommy was saying the other day, purely out of loyalty. But yeah, there was so much going on. This like shook the internet. It probably shook the world, honestly, on how Gaetz just a what like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy.
So he clearly resigned to duck that ethics thing, and they, because the argument is if he's not a congressperson anymore, they no longer have jurisdiction. This was supposed to be like completely for the House punishing one of its members. It wasn't a criminal referral. So him resigning was like pretty convenient that it happened just 2 days before the ethics committee decided to release the report. But I mean, we've had slow leaks. I remember a few days ago when I first heard about how he had been exchanging money for sex with a 17-year-old girl. And so yesterday, I remember reading that there was a second person. Not only was there a second minor, but now the lawyer for one of them was like, we have financial documents that show that he paid these individuals $10,000 between 2017 and 2019. So it's like, oof. And I think it said that he Venmoed them, if I'm not
You can send
mistaken.
that kind of money over Venmo.
I don't know. Let's see. Did it say Venmo? I don't know. They had
Gaetz
wire
is
transfers of, yeah.
just to also let you guys know, like Gaetz comes from a very rich family. Like his dad owned these hospice chains that he sold for like $400 million. And then his dad was the president of the I can't remember if it was the House of Representatives or the Senate in the Florida legislature, but his dad was a pretty respected politician. But he has the money. So even within the Republican Party, his nomination raised a lot of concern. So several GOP senators reportedly signaled that they would not support his confirmation because of the lingering controversies. And so in his statement on Truth Social, not Truth Social, excuse me, X, he said, quote, I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump Vance transition. There is no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. He continues saying, I remain fully committed to see that Donald J. Trump is the most successful president in history. I will forever be honored that President Trump nominated me to lead the Department of Justice, and I'm certain he will save America.
Here's to hoping. Yeah. So I looked it up. Yeah, Venmo and PayPal over the course of 2 years, $10,000 to two women. And he also apparently the financial records of him sending money to somebody saying Joel Greenberg, who was later convicted of sex trafficking. So I mean, there's some pretty serious evidence that this guy might have been involved in some sex trafficking here.
And
So,
he kept saying,
I mean,
he kept doing that. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, he wants to be Florida governor someday, right? So now, like, you know, he drops out. He's like, okay, I got this perfect excuse to drop out. I'm going to be AG. And now he's probably waiting. Oh, I'm going to be AG for a little while. And then now he's seeing that, like, that's not going to happen. And, you know, if he goes through this confirmation, it's likely that report's going to be released, officially released. Now he's just praying like, oh, I've dropped out. No more targets. Nobody's going to release anything or leak anything. And I can go be governor in a few years. I think that's what he's doing. He's probably praying that this goes away. I don't think it will, though.
I think it still will leak. Even if he runs later on to be governor of Florida, I think it's still going to leak.
I'd be really surprised if it doesn't leak, because it's like, not only does that committee, like, it's half and half. They're evenly divided. Not only does it have equal number of Democrats as Republicans, there's plenty of Republicans that don't like Matt Gaetz because he sunk Mike McCarthy. You know, and allegedly Mike McCarthy alleges that the reason why Matt Gaetz
Kevin McCarthy.
Sorry. the reason why Matt Gaetz sunk Kevin McCarthy's speakership is because Kevin McCarthy would not shut down this ethics probe. So there's a lot of Republicans that do not like this guy. So I'm thinking some leaks are going to be coming at some point.
So I mean, this just adds to the chaos of this administration so far. Like every nomination, it's been something. Gaetz has probably been the most explosive. I mean, you were telling me before the show started about. Did you ever find that thing on Dr. Oz you were talking about?
No, I actually couldn't find it. It's something he said in the past that you know, people shouldn't have to get health care, but this was a very new quote when I saw it, so maybe it'll come to light here in the next few days. But allegedly he said that people don't have a right to health care, and it's just like, okay, need is need, you know, like, so if he really did say that, it's just like, people should have a right to their needs, you know, air, water, clean air and stuff like that. So but what I did see that he said was that he wants to increase more private insurance plans that are under Medicaid. So he wants to see more people get Medicaid through private insurance that's subsidized by the government. So that just continues the trend of, like, Republicans who want to privatize Medicaid, that sort of thing. So he's looking like he's going to be a typical Republican on what they call entitlement programs. So,
yeah. So like I said, this raises a lot of questions just about the vetting process and just like the political cost of nominating so many people with significant baggage on them, right? Like even that Linda McMahon. I don't know if we get into it once that confirmation starts, but yeah. So what is next for for what's next for that role? Got a breaking news alert literally minutes before we started that it was Pam Bondi. I think it was her name that I saw, who was a former Florida Attorney General who is now nominated from the
Mm.
role. She is an election denier. Uh, we'll do more research on her, but I'm sure she'll get a confirmation hearing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she looks qualified. But yeah, she's an election denier. She, I mean, when the bar says somebody's qualified or not, like it isn't. They don't go into their like personal beliefs or anything like that. I mean, she is an attorney. She was a state attorney and attorney general in Florida, but she's also been a huge Trump supporter, and he's supported her. Like he's made a lot of donations to her political career. But no, she seems like the type that Trump would want because he's wanting to go on his revenge tour and he needs a good loyal AG to do it. So she seems like the type so far. So
Crazy. Yeah, we'll do some more research on her, and kind of do a live reaction while they do her confirmation hearing. What story do I want to go to next? I should
you
have
have a
went to the.
comment, by the way. You have a comment in the chat that I think is interesting.
Do you think? Oh, this is two.
Yeah.
Do you think Trump helped him out of his situation, appoint him to AG, and resign from Congress, and then withdraw later? I feel like that's just a lot of hop, skipping, and jumping.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah, no,
I mean,
I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just think that I think Trump did try to help him out of it by naming him AG. It was a double win because Trump knew he was going to be unconditionally loyal to him. And okay, we got to get you out of the House of Representatives before this drops. I'm sure Trump knows what's in those files. Like I'm sure he knows what's in there. Um, but probably thought, I'll nominate you for Attorney General. They can't release it then. You'll be a part of the administration. Uh, but the heat was just too much. The heat was just too much. And I wonder if his statement was really he was the one who chose to drop out, or if Trump was like, all right, this is just too much. Like, we got to go with somebody else.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, but I agree with you. Like, I don't think that they tried to do this like sophisticated song and dance. I think that Trump really did want him. It was probably good timing. He was like, Trump, nominate me now, so I have an excuse to step down. But I do think in the end that Trump really did want him because one, the loyalty, and two, I know Trump would know what this guy's skeletons are because Trump is likely going to pick a lot of people based on the skeletons in the closet that he knows. Just to have that little extra insurance.
Mhm.
But no, I think Trump really wanted him. Trump probably saw him as somebody who would litigate his revenge tour and rip up the AG or the Department of Justice the way that Trump wanted it to be ripped up. And I just think at the end, like enough Republican senators were like, not only do I not support you now, but as soon as that report is out, I'm sure people are going to support you less.
Yeah, it would have given them the insurance to like just publicly distance themselves. Like, oh, this is too much. We can't vote for this. Like, we can't approve this. So. Okay, all right. So this, I should have actually went to this story first before the Gaetz story. But breaking news: the ICC. Let me see. Yep, there we go. So the International Criminal Court, ICC for short, issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif, citing alleged war crimes during the recent Gaza conflict. So let's talk about some of this background. So the ICC was established in 2002, and it prosecutes individuals for war crimes, against crimes against humanity, genocide, and aggression when national courts are unable or unwilling to do so. So the court's jurisdiction covers crimes committed by nationals or within the territories of its 124 member state. So the arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant both are accused of crimes against humanity and war crimes, including the use of starvation as a method of warfare and intentionally targeting civilians during its war with Hamas on the Gaza Strip. And Mohammed Deif, so he was a Hamas military chief, and he faces charges related to attacks on Israeli civilians, but during the October 7th conflict. But he was reportedly killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza on July 13th of this year. The Israeli military confirmed his death on August 1st, stating that Deif was eliminated in the strike. However, Hamas has not officially confirmed his death, so there's some uncertainty regarding his status. So some of the reactions: Israeli government Prime Minister Netanyahu denounced the ICC's decision as, quote, absurd and false, asserting that Israel has a right to defend itself. And while Deif's status is uncertain, Hamas welcomed the warrants against Israeli officials, calling for justice for Palestinian victims. And international community, the United States and other allies have rejected the ICC's jurisdiction over Israel, citing concerns about the court's impartiality. So some of the implications that this can have are travel restrictions. So the warrants could limit the international travel of the accused, because ICC member states are obligated to arrest individuals under such warrants. And legal proceedings, the ICC's actions may influence ongoing and future legal and diplomatic engagements related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I was talking to Tommy before the show starts, and Tommy, you had talk about the countries that you found.
So yeah, there's like 125 countries, pretty much every European country, right? The only European countries that aren't signed on to this are Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, the Vatican, and there was one other one, but I can't really remember. But yeah, I mean, completely unprecedented. There's not a lot of places he can go in the world anymore. You have you have Australia, New Zealand on this, even Afghanistan. I don't know. I mean, there's signatories and stuff, but I think that one might have lapsed a little bit. But I mean, he's not going to be able to participate in any like global forums or anything like that. He's kind of somewhat of a de facto pariah at this point.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that.
What's that?
Just the forums and stuff, and like different summits and events.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I asked Tommy before the show started. I was like, so what if he has like a layover, like a flight layover in these places? So I was like, he's not gonna have a layover there. But
he's not gonna have a layover. Nope. Unless he wants to go straight to the Vatican or something. I don't think the Vatican has an airport, so yeah, it's unprecedented. We've never seen a sitting leader of an Western nation like this, indicted for this. So I mean, it's really gonna push to, like, I guess, the credibility of the court, because they're already saying, well, it's not a partial. This guy is biased. This prosecutor. And then, of course, like, as long as he stays out of the ICC countries, he'll be fine for sure. But it's like, what if he does go to one of these nations? Doesn't he still have diplomatic immunity? Does that not, like? I mean,
that's a good point.
Yeah, I guess I should look that up. But it's like, yeah, I mean,
does war crimes override diplomatic immunity?
I don't know, because like Fidel Castro has come to the United States for UN forums and stuff, and we never tried to move on him while he was technically on U.S. soil. So I'm not entirely sure. It would be pretty awkward if he landed in like France, and France has got to make the decision: do I arrest the Prime Minister of Israel like I'm supposed to? I don't know. So
I mean, this is one of those tough situations. I mean, they knew what they signed on to, being a part of like this being a part of the ICC. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, does the rule of this court, transcend whatever else? Like, because it's never been done before, right? It's unprecedented. Do they still follow through with, justice in the eyes of the ICC? We'll see, but Yeah, so Netanyahu right there on the screen with Gallant, and this is the only photo clear enough that I could find when I was prepping for this show of um, Mohammed Deif or Deif. So yeah. So the next story that I want to talk about.
Oh, can I tell you one thing I just looked up?
Sure.
So when it comes to a head of state, there's actually precedent. Um, so what was I don't know the year, but the ICC issued an arrest warrant for Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir while he was in office, alleging war crimes in Darfur. Several ICC member states refused to arrest him, citing immunity, while others, like South Africa, faced criticism for failing to act. So I think a lot of them would pass the buck. I mean, if it's the Sudanese president, sure, I'm sure a lot of them want to be like, well, he has immunity while he's the sitting prime minister, so maybe he doesn't have to worry about it. I thought that was a little interesting thing to add.
Yeah, that is interesting. So this has happened before, and I mean Netanyahu has a higher, like, this is not that this is much more um exposed, but like Netanyahu, I mean, has like pretty close ties with the American government and things like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
probably
Mm-hmm.
feels like this is optional for him.
Yeah.
All right, so Elon Musk and Ramaswamy's bold plan to cut government spending. Let me pull up my notes here. So Musk and Ramaswamy wrote an op-ed in the Washington. What was that face?
What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at you.
Well, I'll get to it. Just go ahead and finish. I'll let you know what I'm thinking.
All right, so they wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, focusing on streamlining the federal government by tackling inefficiencies and cutting what they view as unnecessary spending. So they want to defund unauthorized programs. The duo argues that there are over 1,200 federal programs that continue to receive funding despite lacking current congressional authorization, and cutting those programs could save over 516 billion annually, they claim. When I was doing the research on this, as far as like programs, so like Congress passes, they used to pass two bills. One was like for the funding and then the allocation. But now they just allocate the money to a certain department and trust that they handle like the disbursement of those funds. And that's in a way supposed to make it much more efficient. I was kind of having a hard time understanding like that whole like loophole. But they want to reduce the federal workforce. They propose downsizing, the federal workforce by as much as 50%, and they believe fewer employees can make government operations more efficient and cost effective. Federal agencies, they want to eliminate agencies they view as redundant, like the Department of Education and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Cutting federal regulations using recent Supreme Court rulings, they claim to limit agency autonomy and eliminate regulations they consider inefficient or outdated. And they also want to end remote work for federal. Ramaswamy want federal employees back in the office, claiming it will improve productivity and justify reduction, saying, quote, if federal employees don't want to show up, American taxpayers shouldn't pay them for the COVID era privilege of staying home. Which I don't get, because it's like you're going to pay the cost of this whole building to like parking, electricity, like all these things for these buildings to have all these people come back in when they could just work from the comfort of their home
Yeah.
and not have to have that overhead cost. So they say this is going to save taxpayer dollars, increase efficiency, and limit overreach with cutting regulations. But this could have an effect, a huge effect on essential services. Um, the Department of Education, disrupting critical services relied on by millions of America. Job losses, downsizing the federal workforce could result in significant unemployment, especially in regions reliant on government jobs. So, economic ripple effects. This could harm contractors, small businesses, and local economies that depend on federal funding. And critics also say dismantling federal regulations and limiting agency powers could lead to lengthy legal battles, and forcing people to go back into the office could lower productivity and morale, especially for those who thrived in remote working sessions, or settings, excuse me. So, yeah, go ahead.
So maybe I shouldn't out myself. Maybe I should stay hidden. But I am a federal civil service employee. I'm one of the 2.3 million of them, and apparently I have 50-50 odds here hanging over me. But yeah, we had a town hall right after the election, and we had a town hall just today, and we're talking about the changes that are coming. And what everybody in our office has always been worried about is whether we're going to have to all go back 100%, because even before the pandemic, we were work from home for like 4 out of 5 days a week, right? Depends on your tour duty schedule. So, but I literally was on a call with my regional office director, and she was just like, well, there's this Department of Government Efficiency, and I was just like, it's seriously now within like the government zeitgeist. We are all anticipating this thing being a thing, and
Yeah.
people at our RO, like most of us are veterans, right? Most of us are veterans because it's the VA, right? And we had very good work from home beforehand, and now everybody's like, man, they're just gonna make us go back to the office, 100%. And it's just like, I don't even know if our office has enough room for that, because we've just been so used to like work from home for such a long time, even before the pandemic. But yeah, some of us are kind of left wondering, like, what are they going to be able to do legally to be able to like cut the government 50%, because that is a huge cut. And for that to happen quickly, there'd probably be a lot of lawsuits. But yeah, everybody's thinking about it now, because if we're at the VA, people don't like playing political football with the VA. If we're thinking about it and worrying about it a little bit, then yeah, I guess people are taking this very seriously about a possible coming reduction in force, or all back to the office, even though we were pretty much working from home most of the time beforehand. But hopefully nobody who's cutting jobs sees this video, sees me saying this.
It would be a huge shock to the system.
Yeah.
Disrupting services that people rely on, right? Like that's going to spark a lot of outrage.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, in like a place where there's a lot of federal employees, right? Like say you eliminate, I don't know, 5,000 jobs in DC, now you got 5,000 people who are unemployed. Do they get unemployment benefits? Are they going to get severance packages? Like stuff like that. What do you think of this whole thing? The Doge. Well, you mentioned it earlier a little bit ago, but
I kind of
it's
want to laugh at it and be just, but it's just like, I've been laughing at Donald Trump for like 8 years. Look at the silly clown. It's like, well, not so silly anymore, is he? Never was he ever. And it's just like, well, okay, we'll see what they got to get some authority from Congress, I think. Like, it's not going to be a real department unless they pass some laws. So that was funny. Elizabeth Warren, like, as soon as they started talking about this, Elizabeth Warren was like, oh yeah, Department of Government Efficiency with 2 co-equal leaders running this department. She's like, that's very efficient. Sounds very efficient to me.
right.
Apparently Marjorie Taylor Greene's going to be like a vice president or a vice chair or whatever this is, as well. So
Wow.
I don't know. Maybe we're about to have a very robust and efficient government. Who knows? Stranger things have happened, and hopefully I keep my job. The amount of people who are not even in the federal government who are like, I don't know if I'll keep my job, because I have a friend who's in like environmental education, and a lot of her budget comes from like federal government subsidies. So it's like, well, environmental education is probably going away, so my job's probably going away. And it's just like, man, so many people who aren't even in the federal government are thinking about their jobs might be on the line. But who knows? We'll see. I've had a pretty good life, been a pretty good run. Can't complain.
I'm telling you, dude, like This is just wild. So I've been seeing a lot of videos of FAFO,
Um,
and people not knowing. One of the huge things they want to gut is the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which was coined Obamacare by his critics. Um, and it's astonishing how many people did not know that those two things were the same thing, the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare. I saw this video of this guy talking about how, I hope Trump guts Obamacare, that terrible legislation, but he better not touch the Affordable Care Act because that's how I get my insurance and stuff. There have been so many restitches of that video,
Eesh.
that clip, but seeing the Google search trends surge after the election, like people trying to do research after the situation was done and over with. Wild. So we have one more story for you guys today. So let me pull up my notes here before I go to this. So, in a historic milestone in American politics, the election of Sarah McBride as the first openly transgender person to serve in the United States Congress, representing Delaware's at-large congressional district, has sparked a lot of debates and controversy on Capitol Hill, primarily by this representative of South Carolina right here, Nancy Mace, who's on the left side of the screen, right side of the screen right now. A little bit about McBride. Born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, had been a dedicated advocate of the LGBTQ rights from a young age. Her activism gained national attention during her tenure as a student body president at American University, where she came out as transgender in 2012. Went on to be a part of the Delaware State Senate, and then this year was elected to Congress. So she has faced a lot of opposition from some colleagues or future colleagues, notably Republican Representative Nancy Mace, who introduced a resolution aimed at restricting McBride's access to women's restrooms in the Capitol, citing concerns over, quote, women's security. And Mace had gone on like a huge social media thing on this, tweeting multiple times about this, going on multiple different shows, giving statements to the press, talking about how this is not going to stand, she's not going to let this fly, pretty much attacking her. I have this clip here. Let's take a listen and we'll come back with some other.
Anywhere across the country.
Yeah, but are you going after a marginalized person here?
Sarah McBride doesn't get a say in this. This is a biological man trying to force himself into women's spaces, and I'm not going to tolerate it. You have the radical left that are trying to erase women and erase women's rights. I'm the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. If some guy in a skirt came by and said, no, that's my achievement, I'm going to be there and standing in the way and saying, hell no. I'm not going to allow men to erase women or women's rights. And I'm going to be standing up here. I will file this again next congressional session. Sarah McBride doesn't get a say. This is about women. This is about girls. This is about our rights and being protected in our private spaces. I don't want to see a man in a women's restroom. That's not a thing. And it's not going to be a thing up here. It's not going to be a thing anywhere across the country either. Thank you so much.
So in response to that, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said, he's siding with Representative Mace on the House rules. And so Congresswoman-elect Sarah McBride released a statement on X saying, quote, I'm not here to fight about bathrooms. I'm here to fight for Delawareans and to bring down costs facing families. Like all members, I will follow the rules as outlined by Speaker Johnson, even if I disagree with them. This effort to distract from the real issues facing this country hasn't distracted me over the last several days, as I've remained hard at work preparing to represent the greatest state in the union come January. Serving in the 119th Congress will be the honor of a lifetime, and I continue to look forward to getting to know my future colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Each of us were sent here because voters saw something in us that they value. I have loved getting to see those qualities in the future colleagues that I have met, and I look forward to seeing those qualities in every member come January. I hope all of my colleagues will seek to do the same with me. Delaware Congresswoman-elect Sarah McBride. Meghan McCain quote tweeted this, saying, class act.
Good for her.
and then she got destroyed in the comments.
I don't like Meghan McCain, but yeah.
But I mean, she shared this saying, I guess it's a good way to handle the situation.
There's many instances in which I can agree with Meghan McCain, but then there's many that not. But no, this is a great response for Congresswoman McBride. It's a distraction. That's what it's going to be. I mean, I know it's not sexy, but coming up in this legislative session here, we're kind of expecting, quote unquote, men and girls sports to kind of be a big deal. We're kind of hoping we're wrong. I mean, people are hoping they're wrong. They're just kind of holding their breath right now, wanting to see if Republicans will, kind of just take a breather this session. They got some big wins. They got a big win with that abortion ban, so maybe they'll just kind of just try to fly under the radar. But we do anticipate.
They could probably try to go for a lower one. I don't think. I think they're going to focus. Are you talking about the legislature here in Nebraska?
Yeah, here in Nebraska.
I'm sure they'll focus on the boring stuff, and then right at the end, LB 575.
Well, I mean, yeah, but there's a period pretty early on where they have to stop introducing bills. So we'll know fairly early if there's going to be some kind of cultural battle they'll pick. And if they do, it's likely going to be, transgender girls in high school sports or high school girls sports. But it's just like, what a distraction it is. I've tried talking to senators. Hey, listen, our mom and pop family farm operations, they have to compete against corporate farming operations, and it's an unlevel playing field. It's not any way fair, and we need to be able to do something for these farmers so that they can actually have a shot against, surviving this corporate onslaught. But of course, what might take up a lot of time next session is, making sure that trans athletes stay out of women's sports. But I mean, people have looked, and out in Nebraska, an organization that tries to follow the statistics has said that we can't even find 5 trans athletes. I mean, we could only find 2 in the entire state, but we're pretty confident to say there's no more than 5. So it's just like, yeah, okay, we're going to keep 2 or 3 trans athletes from playing high school sports, aligned with their gender identity. But we still have child poverty. We still have senior poverty. We have farmers. The suicide rate is through the roof. Bankruptcies through the roof. And it's just like, we're going to seriously waste some time on something that is objectively such a small thing. And that's what this is here. Nancy Mace is just trying to keep the culture war going,
Yeah, and in a Newsmax interview, she said, quote, "It is offensive that a man in a skirt could ever think he's my equal," is what she said, this verbatim, that his challenges are the same as mine. They're not. He's forcing his genitals into women's restrooms, into dressing rooms, into locker rooms. It's sick. So the Congresswoman-elect has gotten a lot of support from prominent Democrats such as AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying, quote, "The idea," in a statement that she gave to the press, when they're hounding members as they're leaving, outside, things like that. She said, quote, "The idea Nancy Mace wants little girls and women to drop trout in front of who? An investigator? It's gross." Pretty much saying what are you going to do? Check these things. But Speaker Mike Johnson said that she will be treated as a man under House rules.
Okay. So, well, I imagine a lot of. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is funny talking about equals between men and women and stuff when she comes from the party where people predominantly want to take the right of women's suffrage away. I see so many online conservative content creators, influencers talking about how women shouldn't vote. So it's all right, but also there are going to be so many Republican congressmen who are going to be so uncomfortable using the restroom, and they're going to say, well, she shouldn't be here, even though she shouldn't be in the other bathroom either. It just doesn't make any sense. What they want to say is she shouldn't be here, period. It's not unlike every other, kind of moral panic in the past it almost looks exactly the same. But yeah, I mean, Nancy Mace is just trying to continue the cultural war battle, and unfortunately, like you saw the they them commercial that played heavily at the last 2 weeks of the
Kamala
election.
Harris is for they them. Yeah.
Now, the unfortunate thing, like it's of course that's such a misleading and it's a horrible message. But unfortunately, it was like a near perfect political ad. And they proved as much. I mean, they even have people analyzed some results, and some organization came out and said that it moved people as much as 2.5% votes.
Mm.
And this was an ad that was played across all the swing states, NFL games, thousands and thousands of times. And I think at the end, it's going to tell the conservatives they've been vindicated when it comes to waging this cultural battle, and it's just going to continue into the future. And especially when they don't get the great America that they've been told that they're going to get. I mean, it's just going to be really difficult considering how many people gave Trump money to be elected. So
yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that he's going to deliver. It would be great if he could, make America great again, of course. But if it doesn't happen, what do you do? Well, you try to distract with the cultural war battles. You know what I'm saying? And he's going to keep on vilifying, immigrant people, trans people, anybody who's different, that sort of thing, just to make up for your own shortcomings. And I think that's far more likely. So, I mean, just you got to prepare for an escalation in the cultural wars, I suppose. But hopefully, if you're informed, go ahead.
I do want to just touch on Nancy Mace saying that this is all in an effort to protect women and things like that. Nancy Mace voted against the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act in 2021. Some of the things that she outlined for not supporting the reauthorization was concerned about transgender protections that were within that. She expressed concerns about transgender individuals accessing women's shelters and services, citing potential safety and privacy issues for cisgender women. However, she also opposed the bill because it sought to close what they call the boyfriend loophole, preventing individuals convicted of domestic violence against dating partners from purchasing firearms. And Mace and other critics viewed this provision as an infringement upon Second Amendment rights. Unserious. So do you care about protecting women or not? Because if someone is the victim of domestic abuse, you're going to allow that abuser to go and be able to purchase a deadly weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of just like...
And they call that the boyfriend loophole?
They call it the boyfriend loophole. So she voted against it in 2021, the whole thing. But that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
You say you want to protect women and all of these things, but then it's like, one of the reasons why I'm going to vote against this bill to protect women, the violence against women, is because I don't want this to prevent, other men from getting guns.
Yeah, I think the boyfriend loophole was a new one when it came to the reauthorization. I don't think that was in there beforehand.
No, it wasn't. That was one of the reasons why she said she voted against it, because she felt that was infringing on Second Amendment rights.
Women-only shelters. Okay, I see now. Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm going to be a little pessimistic, I think that, the Violence Against Women Act, I think that was a Biden bill, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's probably one of those things has to do with it. Like, you don't want to let a Biden achievement live on and stuff. And then also, there's the cultural war aspect of it. I mean, it just people have just learned that you can make it if you're willing to, talk about these issues that get everybody mad and emotional thinking instead of, thinking calmly and logically. So, I mean, people can definitely make it. I mean, there's so many conservative influencers out there who are just basically grifters. And all they're trying to do is make people riled up and mad at each other so that they can kind of just exploit that. And Nancy Mace has got that written all over her. She's just trying to be a brand
And this
So
makes me so mad because for everyone watching, this is why it's important to follow members of Congress and the way they vote on things. Now that the internet, is accessible and things can go instantly viral, get this. I think it was the infrastructure bill or something like that, or a part of the American Rescue Act. I forget which one, but I forget which state, but it was a GOP House member that voted against this bill that their city or state benefited, like got so much money from to like help with their infrastructure and things. And she does this like victory lap on Twitter, known at the time as Twitter, saying, "Oh, we secured X amount for this and this and this, and we're cleaning up infrastructure." Pretty much doing a victory lap on what this would mean for her state. Everybody started posting the screenshots of the voting record saying, "You voted against this." So they run and do victory laps when there's legislation passed that benefits their states that they voted against. But in the moment,
mhm.
it doesn't want to give it a win. Take the win where you can, right? Be like, you know what? I can work with the other side. I can, get through bipartisanship things for the betterment of the American people. Versus, like you said, doing these culture war things, using this inflammatory rhetoric, going on these social media circuits and doing all of this stuff, and then trying to do a victory lap at the end when the legislation that was going to benefit your constituents gets pushed through without your help. Crazy.
I mean,
Unserious.
it's a spectacle. I mean, what does every presidential race look like? Super Bowl. It's like I have friends from Canada, England, Germany. They look at the coverage that our presidential races get, and they're just like, why? Like why is it like this? Why it looks like a circus, a spectacle, something that people put on, but it's just like it's one of those things. Like notoriety gets you there in
Yeah,
America.
you would think that the race to become the leader of the free world would be much more demure.
Mhm. I mean, it's like people are always they say they're dying for a very boring civil servant to be their politician, but I mean, for various reasons, we're always kind of roped into this like two personality battles that you got to choose from, and they're like completely different apart. It's never like where's the boring people? Can't do that anymore because um, the way our election system is like set up, if you want to win a primary, you got to be the most conservative. It's a Republican primary. You got to be out there and that sort of thing. And eventually, the two people that make it in the general election typically are just like not even close to being moderates on most issues. So I mean, these days we just see that there's tons of Republican primaries out there where far right Republicans are coming in and beating incumbents, and then everybody's seeing like, oh, you got to be loud, you got to wage the cultural war, you got to get everybody riled up. That's the way to do it, and that's where the incentives are in the election system. When it comes to campaign finance, this is just where the incentives are.
Yeah.
This has got to stop being a winning act. You got to push for reforms to make this stop being a winning thing. So until then, I mean, you're just going to get more of this
Drama. Spectacle.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that is all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Jazari Quell Show. Jazari here. My co-host, Tommy. Always a pleasure.
Yeah,
Any
thanks
final
for having
thoughts?
me. Oh no, I just kind of just want to. I know this might just be me nerding out, but the heat for DNC chairs just keeps on developing, and the field isn't set yet, so I just don't really want to go into it until we kind of get a full picture of what the field is going to look like. But we talked about Ken Martin. He came out of the gate. I thought my count before he came out was about 70, but he came out of the gate with about 83. But now he's over 100 endorsements from voting members in the DNC, and you only need 224.
How many voting members are there in the DNC?
447.
Wow.
Yeah, most of them come from the states and the territories, and that's where he has a huge advantage. But his progressive challenger, because there's Ken Martin and somebody else, and Martin O'Malley are currently declared. I've been told that Rahm Emanuel won't actually announce, even though he has expressed some interest. But then there's this other guy from Wisconsin called Ben Winkler. He's also a progressive challenger. And the reason why he hasn't announced, even though there's a slow drip of news out of Wisconsin saying he's considering it, is because he probably doesn't have a lot of pledges. I think the interesting thing that people need to think about is when you come out the gate with 83 endorsements for the chair, it's very unusual. And that didn't happen overnight. They've probably been working at this for a while. And now he's over 100 pledged. He only needs to get 224 votes to be the chair. I think he's got it. And that actually does have some implications for us because, and this is just me speculating, but it does look like our chair here, the chair of the NDP, has been in on this effort. She looks like she's quite a strong surrogate for him. So, I mean, if Ken Martin becomes DNC chair, we might see the state chair Jane Kleb be elevated to a higher position within the DNC. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But you know, when it feels like the race is kind of set, we can just kind of do a show on how all this works and stuff. So, but it's getting pretty exciting, even for us here in Nebraska.
Well, if that is the case, and let's say she does go and become the vice chair, that opens up the spot here in Nebraska for.
No, and you don't want that to happen. I mean, we could talk about things that I disagree with when it comes with Chair Kleb, but her leaving right now, and I could give you pros and cons for what she did, but like for how she's done, but like her leaving right now would leave a vacuum that would not benefit anyone. And then also, from what I understand, so for what I'm guessing, she would want to become the president of what is known as the ASDC, Association of State Democratic Committees. That's what would make her a vice chair if she became the president of the ASDC. That's what Ken Martin is currently right now. He's the president of the ASDC. And I think that, she seems to be a huge champion for this guy. I'm just kind of watching along on Twitter, and I've had a few interactions with her on Twitter, subtle interactions. And it looks like that's what she might be gunning for. I can't quite tell because, a lot of this is speculation. But if she becomes the president of the ASDC, she has to stay a state chair. So she can't take off if that's the spot she's going for. And I would make the argument you don't want her to step down. You want to give, if she's not running in 2026, you want to give everybody who's thinking about it an even playing field. There are people right now who are ready to pounce on the opportunity of a sudden vacancy, and they're not necessarily the best chairs to come after her. There are some people who are thinking about it right now. They're not ready. So at the very least, no matter how you feel about her, she needs to stay in as state chair till 2026, till her term is up, so that we can actually have a real process of selecting another chair. But if she stays on, if she does get this ASDC position and become a vice chair, and she stays on as state chair past 2026, I still think that's interesting too, as far as what that could open her up to, as far as helping us out down here. So it's very exciting. I'm sure it would put a lot of people to sleep, but paying attention, that's what we got right now. That's what we got to look forward to right now, who the next DNC chair is. And if it's the right person, and I believe it's Ken Martin, then things should be looking up for us, is what I'm trying to say. If it's a Rahm Emanuel or Martin O'Malley, what are we doing? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And the importance of this, guys, is that this is going to set up messaging for 2026, the midterms, that could turn the tides in the Democrats' favor. And depending on how this Trump administration plays out the first couple of years, and also for the next presidential election, right? So one thing that we talked about, the Democrats were missing was some kind of central messaging that the right had pretty down locked. They focused on safety, the border, freedoms, family, things like that. The Democrats didn't have a central message. See, the central message was Project 2025 and Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. That was kind of it. And I don't think a lot of people took that seriously because the Democrats lost the election.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the first sign that the Democrats will be moving into a different direction. Ken Martin is not somebody who's backed by a bunch of wealthy billionaires, that sort of thing. He's somebody who does talk about kitchen table economics, that sort of thing, bridging the rural-urban divide. He's very good at ground game. In Minnesota, he did invest a lot in ground game and organizing. And one of the reasons why, and you can't just give all the credit, but one of the reasons why they were able to capture a trifecta in Minnesota is because they were able to flip a few House districts. I believe it was the House districts for the legislature, their state legislature, from red to blue. And it gave them a very small majority in both House, Senate, and then they had the governor. And then they were able to deliver this huge package of progressive victories. And it was because of a lot of reasons, but was one of them is because Ken Martin believes in grassroots organizing, investing in grassroots organizing, and investing in young people to like learn how to do that. Like I remember reading that he had like money for basically paid internships to teach people how to organize, grassroots organizing and stuff. So, I mean, Martin O'Malley is somebody who's status quo. You know, he's going to be more worried about making, you know, wealthy donors happy. But I think Ken Martin is going to be somebody who's going to try to be making the pitch to working class people, you know? So I'm really hopeful. He's got over 100 pledges so far. It just needs 224. I mean, numbers beget numbers. You know, his endorsements are probably going to strategically trickle out over the next few days. They have a really big, important meeting in December, the first week of December. And I just think you're just going to see his momentum just explode until he's basically just got a sure thing going. That's my guess, but there's actually a whole kind of process to this. There's going to be candidate forums for a chair. You know, typically there are. That's something that doesn't get a lot of coverage, but I mean, if you're looking for hope, this is kind of the first chance you're going to get as to see who the chair is going to be.
So, I mean, these forums, are they all in person, or do you think they're going to be virtual?
They were all in person in 2017. When a Democratic president wins, they're basically going to pick who the DNC chair is, right? There's not going to be any real competition. But when a Democratic presidential candidate loses and there's going to be a Republican president, it's a full-on like election sort of thing. But no, just one moment. So in 2017, Tom Perez and Keith Ellison were the two juggernauts, and they had forums and debates. They had some in Phoenix, Baltimore, George Washington University, sponsored and aired nationally on CNN. So, I mean, I don't even remember any of that. Like, and I thought of myself as somebody who was plugged in, but yeah, I mean, there's going to be debates and forums if it follows the same format as last time. And then they have to have the election by March 1st. So March 1st at the latest, we'll get to see what our new direction might be, if we have a new direction, or we're going to kind of just stay the course, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a pick-me-up, this race is going to be it. And I say that I would be so much more hopeful for the future if somebody like Ken Martin got elected. So we'll bring more coverage on that later as it develops.
We will. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this. We've actually been doing this a lot more consistent than I thought.
My wife seems happy. Yeah, so it's not been too much.
Because you talk to, because she doesn't want to hear about
some of that. It's like I'm not unloading on her so much. She's just like, I pay attention to the politics about a month away from the general election and primary elections, and then she's like, after that, I have to unplug, and it's just like, how are you able to do this? Like, I don't understand how it works.
But a lot of people value your opinion on here and your voice and your perspective, so love having you.
Yeah. No, I thanks for having me. We'll just keep on doing this. It's gonna be a long 4 years, I think. You know?
Yeah, it will be. Be sure to like and share the stream to keep the conversation going. Sound off in the comments. We will be in there replying to some people that we probably didn't get to, or people who are going to watch this afterward. I'll be going through the comments on the different pages and stuff and replying to some things. And yeah, if you do want to be on the show, offer some perspectives, things like that, let us know. We'll certainly drop you a link so you can come on. But yeah, that's all we have for you today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.